And it's based on something that happens virtually every day in Los Angeles, something that I witnessed one day when I was out with a friend. I was driving with my friend, the optimist, who despite her optimism had that afternoon noticed at Ralph's that on her shopping list she had scribbled ground belief. The moon, star-like, air-kissed the Hollywood jacaranda. The unhappy geriatrics withheld applause, sitting on what they wished was a veranda, not the bald cement abutment that it was. They were motionless after a matzo supper, watching as on a stage a curse-hungry teen whose face was tossed like a crumpled wrapper into our headlights and our panic of adrenaline. He seized a bicycle and sheared it at our car. It was one of LA's casual cruelties, the faces as from a hole punch, dispensable and sure, the earth that roils with unnamed psychosis just under the urban blanket we have tucked around its bulk, the fault-finding and the path seismic. Oh, it's been coming. It's been sicked on us, the six-toed, night-blooming behemoth.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. I want you to be now the teacher in your English class. And you are being asked to analyze this poem written by some woman that you've never met.
Right.
How would you analyze this? What is the core of its creativity? Why did it win so many prizes?
Well, I think before I would frame a poem to my students as why is this a successful poem, I think we might just look at it in terms of what's happening. What is this poem about? I would probably ask my students to tell me what's going on the literal level. You know, so many negative stereotypes attached to poetry. Students think it's about, you know, love and high fancy emotions and anguish and so forth. And it doesn't have to be about that. So I would ask my students, look, what do we know about this speaker? Who is this friend that the speaker is driving with? What do we know about this relationship? Literally, what's happening in the poem? Can you describe to me this incident of violence and the intentionality behind this incident? And then once we've established what's actually going on, then I might try to move that discussion into an idea of why these comparisons are being made. I think this all goes back to this idea earlier that we mentioned of connections and of discursivity. How and why are we bringing together things that don't seem to have very much in common? For instance, in this poem, why has the poet compared seismic activity to a gesture of adolescent rage? You know, what do those two things have in common? And then I think I would take it from there and invite my students to participate in this sort of unfolding analysis.
Greg, in your science fiction, do you look to do similar things? Do you look to bring conflicting ideas together?
Oh, sure. The best way I know how to generate a story is to smack people together, basically. And the big problem I usually have is actually not starting a novel, but rather stopping a novel. I just finished a novel and just realized that there's something more I want to do with it, and called up my editor, and she said, "Can't you leave these people alone?" And the answer is no. That's the problem, is that my characters keep on doing things because they engender their own violence and their own lives, and it's really hard for me to put them down.
Do you ever feel out of control in the artistic process?
Oh, sure. There's always an element of being out of control. Skiing is like that. It's some control. One thing I really finally learned from a high school English teacher is to outline. I outline more and more, but it's all to put a frame around it.
We have to project forward 100 years, and will creativity be a subject to learn like we would learn English and history today? What do you think, John?
I think it already is in some countries and some communities. I think what's going to be different about 100 years from now is that anyone will have access to a rich array of tools, technology-based tools, and perhaps other kinds of methods for amplifying their creativity.
Right?
Well, it seems to me that what will be different is that we are less and less obliged to follow certain patterns which are forced upon us either by the backward technology or backward social arrangements we have, and this could potentially make us a fantastically creative society.
Right.
I hope so. I hope that the boundaries between disciplines will be down and flexible, and that our art will be based and enriched by responses that we have to art and accomplishments in other fields.
Greg?
I think we may be able to technologically access creativity, literally get some feeling, because we'll know how the brain works, of what it feels like to be creative. And that would be something genuinely new in the human prospect, to truly understand another in some different sense.
I think our world culture will eventually get struck on the road to Damascus and realize that creativity is the key, is the growth engine to learning, to discovery, to invention, to civility, to humanity. And they'll get wise about that, and I think they will study it and respect it in the same way we now are aware of the fact that it's like oxygen and air and all these other kinds of basic things that allow us to flourish, period.
Learning to be creative really works, but it takes work. Begin by generating numerous possible solutions to your problem. Don't fear conflict, even confusion. Next, be rigorous and merciless in your analysis. Woolly-brained, poorly structured solutions can be worse than no solutions. So test them all, eradicate the weak ones, kill off your own babies, until only the best solutions remain. Never be satisfied. Always monitor results. Constantly reassess everything. The right process moves us closer to truth. I'm Robert Kuhn.